Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast, and good morning for those of you from the West Coast. I'm Sky Landgraf. I'm our Director of Partnerships and Programs here at We Are Moving the Needle, and it's a pleasure to welcome you this afternoon to this informational session on our Scholarships and Microgrants program. I'm going to be going over key information on each of these funding initiatives. What do they cover? What's the difference between a scholarship and a microgrant, as well as some frequently asked questions on eligibility, tips for strengthening your applications, and more. We're going to have about 20 minutes for live Q&A at the end of this talk, so please don't hesitate to put your questions in the chat as we go, and I'm going to address them when we get to the Q&A session. So, to kick us off, I'm just going to briefly touch on We Are Moving the Needle's mission here for any of you who are new to the organization. We Are Moving the Needle works to radically reshape the future of the recording industry. We're addressing the most pressing issues facing our industry and creating a stronger future for all. We empower women, non-binary, and trans producers and engineers to succeed at the highest levels. We take a two-pronged approach to this work. We're driving equity through our scholarships, grants, mentorships that impact creators like you in the here and now. And we're shifting industry culture through research, through our Fix the Mix report, our advocacy, and our annual Resonator Awards during Grammys Week. We're really here to build a supportive community around the world. And I do want to say that our door is always open to creators. So while we are going through our scholarships and grants today, I also want to share that you can always reach out to us to discuss our college chapters program, mentorship, community events, internship placements, and more. Our door really is open. At We Are Moving the Needle, we believe that empowering women and non-binary creators in the studio really starts in the classroom. This is the cornerstone of our educational work. It's our robust scholarships and grants program, which provides opportunities for women and non-binary creators to attend some very prestigious audio and recording programs at academies, colleges, and universities around the world. We have awarded over $600,000 in scholarships and grants since 2021 to support education and career development. I always note for folks, and it's very important, that our scholarships and grants program is incredibly wide-ranging and supports creators at various points in your education and career development. These are not just, your typical undergraduate scholarships. So, for example, some of our other programs have included Abbey Road Institute, Mixed with the Masters, Los Angeles Academy of Artists and Music Production, or LAMP, run by Stargate, Point Blank Music School, Blackbird Academy, and more. Here's a snapshot of some of our alumni. Our incredible alumni are really the future leaders in music and audio. We have star alumni who have come to us at the midpoint in their career, feeling stuck, looking for ways to level up and get re-inspired by attending something like Mixed with the Masters. Others who have been specializing in one area, like mixing engineering, and wanting to attend LAMP, for example, to extend their work as a producer or strengthen their prowess in a certain area. And then, of course, we do offer a really robust set of supports for those who are just starting out with scholarships, for those of you who are seeking degrees in audio and production. So truly, I always tell people that we are here to support you for your entire career and through the full pipeline for women in audio. Today, we have two open opportunities for funding that we're going to dive into. Our spring quarter microgrants applications close on April 13th, and then our annual open scholarship call, which closes on April 27th. I'm going to share details on each of these two opportunities to help you select the opportunity that is the best fit for you, as well as some overall recommendations for completing a strong application. And those recommendations are going to be evergreen for all of our scholarships and grants opportunities, and probably some great tips and tricks for anything that you might find yourself applying to across your education and career. So the first question you might be asking yourself is, what is the difference between a scholarship and a microgrant, and which is the right program for me? So this slide provides an overview of the key differences between each of these two programs here. I would say the biggest piece to remember is that scholarships are for educational assistance and microgrants are for career development. If you take away nothing else, that's the key point for you here. I'm going to walk through each of these bullet points in a little further depth, but to give you a bird's eye perspective, our scholarships fund educational assistance or the direct expenditures relating to pursuing your degree, and we'll dive into more about what that means. They are for creators pursuing degrees in music production, audio engineering, and related fields. The scholarship awards for this cycle are $5,000 and $10,000. The amount of which that you'll ultimately be funded with is dependent on the fund and the program. And these are not typically defined as taxable income per IRS. And again, I'll explain more about what that means in a moment. On the other side, with microgrants, these fund career development needs that are not otherwise covered by scholarships or educational assistance. So think everything that wouldn't fall under the scholarship bucket might fall under the microgrants bucket. They are for rising college juniors and seniors and early career professionals with no more than 3 years post-graduation. We'll dive into more about that as well. The awards here are smaller pockets of funding. They range from $500 to $1,000, and again, are based on your project goals and needs. All awards over $600 are defined as taxable income for the IRS. Last, but certainly not least, I do want to highlight that all of our scholarships and grants, regardless of these two programs, are paired with mentorship opportunities from our renowned soundboard and mentor community. We also typically pair all of our scholarships and grants with some amazing gear from one of our fabulous partners. These rounds are supported by our partners at Apogee, for example. What the gear is and when it's coming, all of these pieces fluctuate with time. But I really want to highlight this because these awards from We Are Moving the Needle are not just about the money. This is also about making sure that you are fully equipped in a really holistic way for success. I also want to note that we typically do not award scholarships and microgrants concurrently to an individual. You can't get both at the same time. We do this because we want to spread the love around and give as many folks access to funding as possible. So it is important that you pick the right program for you. And if you're unsure which program is right for your needs or you're still having questions after this call, you can always reach out to info@wearemovingtheneedle.org and ask our team for more information on whether your project or program qualifies and which of these two buckets it should fall under. Let's move on to a deep dive on our scholarships. So, as I said, these are funding educational assistance or the direct expenditures related to pursuing your degree. The biggest driver of that is, of course, tuition, but that can also include things like room and board, providing that that's part of your overall package from your school. This can also apply to some required course materials, but the key word here is required, which by IRS definition applies to anything that your school, program, department, professor requires that all the students have access to and is not already provided for you. So it unfortunately does not mean that it's that cool piece of gear that you want to have to complete a class project. It has to be something that, say, is written on your syllabus or in acceptance letters that are recommended for new students, etc. But if you have that cool piece of gear that you're looking for to complete a project, you might qualify for a microgrant, which we'll go over in a minute. Scholarships are for creators pursuing degrees in music production, audio engineering, and related fields. We're going to dive into this because there's a lot of questions under here. So first, I want to say that we are incredibly inclusive about how we define degrees. Scholarships can support creators at the associate's, undergraduate, and graduate level degrees. Your program does have to be an accredited degree granting institution. I would say that pretty much all programs that we've seen applications come forward are one of those. If you do have questions about whether or not you're at an accredited institution, you should be able to see that on your school's website, or you can always reach out to We Are Moving the Needle if you have questions, and we should be able to help you answer that. Part-time students are eligible. However, you have to be actively enrolled in a degree granting program. So it's not eligible for, say, one-off courses that are not in pursuit of some sort of certificate or degree. Fully funded graduate programs are also not eligible. Again, this is because these scholarships are for tuition assistance. So if you aren't paying tuition, you likely are not eligible, if that makes sense. If your school does not have an audio production or engineering department or major, that's okay. We work with a lot of schools that have a various different kinds of programs. Some are very lucky and they have incredibly robust production and engineering programs and majors. Some are housed in schools of communication or schools of music, but they're different specialized pockets and they're not necessarily a formal major. That's okay. We still encourage you to apply. We are inclusive also about how we're defining technical creators. We're really in this current moment, we're seeing a lot of folks who are blurring the lines between these traditional roles in the studio. These are engineers who are songwriters, producers who are artists, and more. We're here to support equity across all of these technical roles, and we're available for multi-hyphenate and these entrepreneurial creators. However, the key piece under each of these is that at the end of the day, you have to have a demonstrated commitment to growing your career in technical education. So if you're an artist producer in a music program that is not a production house program, you are still encouraged to apply, but be mindful when you're putting together your application and your portfolio that you're really making it clear and known to us what your technical goals are and that you have a commitment and a vested interest in growing that side of your education and career path. We'll talk more about that and how you can show us that as we get through, but I do want to put a clear flag there for you all. Our scholarships awards will be at $5,000 and $10,000. We have a couple of incredible named scholarship funds this cycle, the Sophie Scholarship Fund and the Brandy Carlisle Scholarship Fund, for example. And they have different dollars associated with them. Don't worry about it. You apply using one form, so don't have to feel stressed. We're doing this determination on our end to assess and align where your application is going to best fit according to our various funds. But that's just to give you a sense of awareness of what the funding levels look like for this year. All of our scholarships and grants are going to be made directly to you as an individual. They don't go to your school. They go right into your hands. This does mean that you are required to follow IRS guidelines related to taxable income. Don't get freaked out. It's not anything scary. Scholarships that are used to cover tuition are direct educational costs and are typically not defined as taxable income per IRS guidelines. But this is why we recommend some caution for example, part-time students in particular, because if the amount of your total tuition is going to be less than what the award is that you're getting from We Are Moving the Needle, the overhead, the difference between those two, could likely be considered taxable income per IRS. We Are Moving the Needle is ultimately not making any tax recommendations for you. We are not a tax entity like that. You should always consult with a finance professional for any complex questions. But if you do have questions about how that's looking for on your end, we can always kind of provide just a little bit more details about how the funding structure works, and you can always reach out. On the other side of the coin are our microgrants. So unlike our scholarships, the microgrants fund career development needs. Think about all the things that would otherwise not be covered by a scholarship or educational assistance. They are not used for tuition or degree granting programs. These are small pockets of money that are designed to fill the gap or enable you to do projects or activities that will meaningfully advance your career and that you might not otherwise be able to do. So some examples from some past recipients have included travel stipends for an internship or a short-term assistant job. Think you've gotten this amazing opportunity to work somewhere and you just need help getting there. Workshop fees, conferences, professional development. I always put a very important caveat here that it is not eligible for programs where We Are Moving the Needle already has an existing scholarship relationship. So you do not apply for a microgrant to attend mixed with the master's or AES. We have separate scholarship calls and cycles for that. If you are interested in attending one of those programs, you can always reach out to our team to try to find more information about when our next cycle for those applications might arise. But other kinds of professional development programs that we don't have other funding cycles for do certainly qualify for this under microgrants. Studio needs. So, are you building a home studio after graduation? Or maybe you're upgrading your new studio with some key features like building an isolation booth for vocal recording, something that's going to open up new areas of work for yourself. Getting existing studio time for eligible projects. So, are you working to get some demo recordings that highlight your work as a producer to use to get into grad school or to get jobs? Are you looking to do some work in Atmos and you don't have an Atmos equipped studio at your fingertips? It's important to note that artist projects and EPs are not typically eligible. Again, think back to the fact that we are really trying to support those who are building careers on the technical side of the industry. So it's not necessarily for your personal artist project. It's really about what are you doing to advance your career in audio more broadly. Does that make sense? So, we encourage you to be a little creative also with your proposals. Are you experimenting with some new innovations? The kind of world is your oyster here. You can be a little bit open with, wanting to get a cool piece of gear because you think that you have this great idea to advance some new sounds. Lay it out for us. Talk us through what you're thinking. We're excited about that. This round of microgrants are for rising college juniors and seniors and early career professionals who are no more than 3 years from post graduation. I want to put a little caveat here about what we mean by post graduation. That does not necessarily mean that you have to have a college degree. We're using this as a benchmark to kind of keep track of the often transition point of when you go from being very, very early career, just starting out, to starting to crest onto more of that mid-career perspective. So a little bit of this is going to be using a sense of common sense. Like if you have a lot of opportunities, you're really pretty well established, this round of microgrants may not be for you. But I do always say that be on the lookout because we do offer microgrants on a quarterly basis, and not all of them are the same kind of call. Like, for example, this January, our winter microgrants were related to the LA wildfires, and it was our Fire Fund initiative. So we have different calls at different cycles for folks at different levels. This round is particularly geared towards those folks who are really on the precipice of building their career right out of the gate. Awards range between $500 and $1,000. They're going to be based on your project goals and needs. You are not asked to provide a full line item budget with your application. However, we do ask you to provide a budgetary explanation. And you want to give enough detail here to show that you've done your research on actual costs. Be specific, truly. Don't just tell me that you want to buy gear. Tell me what kind of gear you want to buy and why, and how much you think this is going to cost, and really lay out some thoughtful research so we know what you're doing. We also use all of this to evaluate the overall funding amount. So not all applications are going to be funded at the full amount that they've applied for, but the more detail you're able to put, the more research you've done, that kind of shows us that you're also prepared to take on a larger amount of money and you understand how this is going to be used for you in a really meaningful way. It's important to take the time to highlight what your needs are, and how this is also going to tie back to your career growth. Show that you put in some legwork to defining some of these costs and what this means for you. And then, like I mentioned, under our scholarships, all of our microgrants are similarly awarded to you as an individual. So since they are not direct educational assistance, all awards over $600 are typically defined as taxable income per IRS, and you're going to be issued a 1099 for your records from We Are Moving the Needle. Again, we're not a qualified tax advisor. If you have any questions about implications of that for you, you should absolutely reach out to a tax professional with detailed questions. But if you have just some general guideline questions, you can always reach out and ask us as well. So, some microgrants do's and don'ts I want to walk through here. On the left-hand side here, you're going to see the items that are eligible for funding. This is not a comprehensive list. There are some great ideas out there that are not on this list that you are welcome to apply with. However, some things that might come to mind: purchase of studio gear, gap support for travel expenses, studio rental time, attendance fees for professional development, or other, again, tangible projects related to your audio production and engineering career development. The things that are not eligible: just general rent or cost of living. Getting by is unfortunately not an eligible microgrants funding. We've got too many folks who are in need of that support. Supplementary income for something that's already been paid. That's different than travel stipend, right? But if you just need money on top of what you're getting paid, that does not qualify. Marketing and promotion related to, say, EP completion or your artist projects. Event costs, catering, sponsorship costs, things like that. That does not qualify under this program. If you are putting together some sort of community event, you can always reach out and we might be able to partner with you in other ways. Like I said, educational costs, so tuition, fees, things that are associated with undergraduate or graduate degrees, those would fall under the scholarship program and not qualify for microgrants. And last one is perhaps the biggest one we get requests around is student loan payments or other loan repayment. That is unfortunately not something that qualifies for microgrant support. These have to be project-based needs for you to support career development. All right, let's look at some general eligibility for these two programs. These following eligibility bullets apply to both scholarships and microgrants. The first is that applicants for this cycle at least must be US citizens or permanent residents. That's because the funds are going directly to you as individuals. If you are applying for an international program, you would be eligible as long as you yourself are a US citizen with an active permanent residence in the US. Again, this is just around our tax implications of these awards and what that looks like. There might be future application cycles for these kinds of programs that are open to international students and citizens. Please keep an eye out. But for this cycle, these two programs are unfortunately not eligible for international applicants. We do, however, have programs like Mixed with the Masters, or for anyone who saw our most recent partnership with Abbey Road Institute. Those were international workshops and projects, and we were able to provide those for international professionals. So there are other cycles and opportunities that are available to you. Applicants must be 18 or older before May 26, 2025. So before funding determination is going to be awarded to you. Again, that's because we're making awards to individuals. Funds cannot be used on any pre-existing We Are Moving the Needle partnerships. Again, that's something like Mixed with the Masters or LAMP, AES. All of our educational partners are on our website. You can kind of look through our past scholarship cycles or look at our partnership page. But if you do have any questions about that or you're not sure, you can always reach out to the info inbox and we'll be able to give you some guidelines about whether or not there are any pre-existing scholarships or grants programs with that partner. We do ask that all application materials are submitted in English. And then our final piece is that here, in compliance with some industry standards, We're Moving the Needle is expecting that written materials and your work samples have meaningful contributions from you as the applicant. So use of generative AI in work samples in particular must be disclosed in your application. We do this in large part out of a question of equity. If you wrote your song using AI and someone else didn't, we kind of need to know that. There's lots of valid work happening out there with AI, and we encourage you to just be thoughtful in your statement about how and why you may have used that for your production or artist project work. And similarly, if you're using ChatGPT, for example, to write the written portions of your application, I would just say be mindful. We can tell if it has not been written by you as a person, and your goals are going to sound more flat, to be perfectly honest. You're not going to be articulating at the level that others who are not using that tool are using. So, you are going to want to put in some serious human work into leveling up the written portions of your application as well. Lastly, I'll just share that scholarships and microgrants are awarded in alignment with We Are Moving the Needle's mission to empower women, trans, and non-binary creators in the music industry with a demonstrated commitment to production and engineering. That's kind of the evergreen statement here. If you have questions about your eligibility, kind of think about us in relationship to our mission, and that's going to help drive some questions. All right, a couple of deep dive pieces on each of these two program reminders. For scholarship, as I said, all applicants must be currently enrolled in an audio engineering, sound technology, audio production, or similar related program where you have a clear demonstrated commitment to your career in audio and production and engineering. This does include incoming first-year students, as long if you're in a qualified program, as well as returning students. When you fill out your application, you'll see there is a question where you're asked to provide some proof of enrollment, letters of acceptance or unofficial transcripts, etc. You can find all that information on the application on our website, but if you have any questions about how to verify your enrollment status, you can always reach out to the info inbox. I also want to note that question we've been getting, scholarships are not retroactive. If you are a graduating senior, graduating this semester, you cannot use the scholarship to kind of retroactively apply that to this past semester. Consider applying for a microgrant instead, for example. Under microgrants, again, a reminder, rising college juniors and seniors, and early career professionals who are less than 3 years out approximately from a graduation kind of benchmark. I just want to put in another plug here that in general, if you have any eligibility questions, you can put them in the chat at any time. We're going to be going over that in Q&A. And if you want to reach out to our team at info@wearemovingtheneedle.org, you can always discuss specifics with someone from our team. All right. Now we go into the fun part. How are our applications reviewed, and talk about, and we're going to talk about some general guidelines and recommendations for how you can strengthen your application. So we're going to start with who actually evaluates these applications. We Are Moving the Needle has an amazing soundboard, which is made up of leaders from across the industry. These are artists, producers, engineers, songwriters, business leaders, and more. And these volunteers serve on a rotating scholarships and grants review committee. They work alongside the We Are Moving the Needle team to review applications. And we pair soundboard members with review cycles based on their expertise for that particular scholarship or grants program. How are your applications evaluated? We Are Moving the Needle's evaluation rubric looks at 4 core areas, okay? Experience. What is the candidate's experience level and background in music? Does their experience map onto the learning or career goals of this program or project? Skills proficiency. Does the candidate have the relevant skills needed to succeed, and are they prepared for this level of program? Career goals and commitment. Does the candidate have a clear set of objectives on how and why this program will support their goals? Do they articulate this? And alignment within the We Are Moving the Needle community. Will the candidate flourish in our community? Do we have the supports that they need to succeed? So our number one priority that I always share with folks is that, from the perspective of our review committee and our team here at We Are Moving the Needle, our number one priority is to make sure that every single one of our scholarship and grants recipients are set up for success. We want to help you. When we're evaluating your skills and experience, for example, what we're really looking at is, are you prepared to flourish in this program or with this project that you've applied for? We never want anyone to feel like they've gotten this amazing opportunity and then they're 3 feet underwater, right? And this is going to vary program by program and person by person. So digging into that first rubric area, experience, This is the area where we get to know you and what your background in music is. Are you ready for this program? Before the hard skills, even, which is in the next rubric, this is where we look at your overall professionalization level and how that maps onto what you've applied for. So, for example, are you a songwriter who's applying for a high level engineering program with no engineering experience on your CV whatsoever? That might be a flag. I want to be clear though, and I really can't stress this enough. We're not interested in only giving opportunities to people with quote unquote tons of experience. This is not what this question is looking for. Beginners, do not be discouraged. What we're looking for here is how your experience lines up with the level of the program that you're applying for or the project you're applying with if it's a microgrant. So, like with Mix with the Masters, for example, that program very much is designed for people with a certain level of skills or acumen so that when they walk into Studio La Fabrique, they feel prepared and they know what they're doing. On the other hand, we would never give a mid career professional who might go to something like that a scholarship to Point Blank Music School's degree granting program, which is really geared for folks building new skill sets. So, if you were an overqualified applicant for that, that would also be a flag. Your experience is going to be evaluated for where you are in your learning and your career path. And especially for this cycle of scholarships for students, you may feel like you have almost no professional experience, or your portfolio is all things that you made on GarageBand in your bedroom. And that is okay. I want to be encouraging. You're very welcomed here. The big takeaway I want you to have is that successful candidates know what level of program they're applying for and why. The next area of our rubric is skills proficiency. So here we're going to take a deeper look at your experience and ask, does the candidate have the technical proficiency and skills required to succeed? Are you going to feel lost or confident in what you're doing? For more advanced programs, do your work samples indicate that you're going to be prepared for the next level? Again, I want to stress, this is not necessarily about us sitting around and evaluating how complex your Atmos mix is, unless that's the kind of program that you've applied for. This is about aligning your skills with the program and with your goals. Ultimately, as I said, this is really just we want you to succeed. So next, we're going to look at career goals and commitment. I'll be honest, this is really the area that separates the top of the pack of our applicants from everyone else. And this is the area where most candidates kind of neglect or trip up on. The goal of this funding is ultimately to open doors. We are here to help vault more women, non-binary, and trans creators into the top echelons of this industry. We're looking for candidates who are go-getters, those who are driven, have a clear set of goals, and are able to articulate why this program is going to make an impact for them. We see incredibly strong applications all the time from very talented creators who have all the right experience and skills, but they're really not able to tell us why they want to attend the program they've applied for. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. These isn't about opportunities you've already had or the skills you have on hand. These scholarships and grants are really about where you hope to go and how we can help you get there. What new skills are you hoping to gain? Are you interested in learning from this particular professor or this master, and why? For grants, how do you see this new project or gear opening some real doors for you? And again, we're going to line all of this up alongside the program or project you've applied for because we want you to be set up to reach those goals. The other pitfall we see in this area is creators who fail to articulate goals that include a robust set of work behind the board. As I said, we are absolutely fans of multi-hyphenate creators, but we do look for folks who are not just self-producing artists, but are really interested in participating in and one day leading the field of audio. So don't be discouraged if you're just starting out and you're not sure how technical you are. Apply. We talk to young creators all the time who are not confident that they're allowed to fit in the technical space, and we're here to support you. But do be thoughtful about what some of your technical goals are and share them with us. Those goals might be quite literally gaining confidence. We see that a lot in some incredible applications. Be open with us. The last area of our rubric is going to look at your overall alignment with the We Are Moving the Needle community. Every single one of our scholarships and grants is paired with a mentor. So it's really, do we have the connections that you need? Are we the community that you need to succeed? Are you yourself committed to equity? Are you working to build an audio community at your school, etc.? What are the pieces that we feel like we're going to have a reciprocal relationship with you where you are really going to get a lot out of being a part of the We Are Moving the Needle family? So to summarize, I hit you all with a lot of information, but I'm going to summarize quickly the three main things here. We're looking at demonstrated experience and skills in relationship to your program, the alignment of your overall career goals and how the scholarship or grant will support them, and how our community is poised to support you, and how are you poised to be a leader in our community. So let's dig into some more tips for success. Okay, so every opportunity and every candidate are going to be a little bit different, but in general, these are some things that we see our top tier applications share. Thorough and thoughtful written responses. Please take advantage of that word count. This is absolutely really high up there on the list of pitfalls from applicants. You just don't write enough. Never assume that a reviewer is going to do any legwork to learn more about you. Leave nothing up to chance. If the suggested word count is 250 words, I highly recommend that you should write 250 words. This is really going to be evergreen advice for you for all funding opportunities, even outside of We Are Moving the Needle. This is just a good rule of thumb to follow. Take advantage of that space. It's really upsetting as a reviewer when you see someone start an application that's really promising, and then they give you a one sentence answer as to why this program is going to support their goals. It just doesn't feel right in the end. Make sure that you clearly articulate these goals. You've heard me say this a lot, and I think that that really speaks to how important it is for us as reviewers. They have to include growing your skills and leadership behind the board. This is what sets our shortlist applicants apart. We want to know what's driving you. We don't expect you to have a fully mapped out 5-year plan. This isn't about that, but this is about identifying some tangible specifics on what you want to learn, why you want to learn from this person or this project or this activity, and how this is really going to help support your next move. This is especially important if your work samples or your experience are mainly centered around your work as an artist. Many of our successful alumni are multifaceted creators, and they are working as songwriters and artists alongside their work behind the board, but they are able to articulate and maintain a commitment to learning, growing, and leading behind the board as well. They're clear about their goals. That might mean wanting to branch out and produce for others more and build up their skill sets or confidence to do so. Maybe you're largely self-taught and the program will provide more important credentialing. Whatever it is, just tell us. Strong applications are able to answer why and how this scholarship is going to further your goals. So make sure that when you're articulating your goals, you don't forget to pull it back to the overall specific program or the microgrant project you're applying for. Why does this opportunity matter to you right now? How is this going to impact you? The strongest candidates really have clearly read and researched the scholarship or grant details in full and are able to share a clear understanding of why this particular scholarship is important to this phase of their creative journey. For those of you who are applying college scholarships, why are you in that department? What drove you to this major, perhaps? Your job really here is to make the connection for us, not only to what your goals are, but how this is the pathway to achieving them. There is also a little bit of an opportunity here to address the financial question for this funding, demonstrating for us why you need this. We're not asking for FAFSA. For example, this is not, don't feel the need to share personal financial details. But if this scholarship is going to, for example, make the difference between you going to school or not, I would encourage you to tell us that. Tell us why this matters to you. And then the last piece is really thinking about a comprehensive portfolio. For most of our reviewers, we typically will do like a quick look at your website and your CV first to give us a snapshot of who you are. And then we're going to go straight to your portfolio and we're going to throw on that music while we're reading more about you. This is really one of our first impressions of you. And the biggest pitfall we see here is from applicants who have a lack of clarity on what technical roles you played in your portfolio, especially, as I said, for those of you who are also working as artists. So, my very first tip here is frankly a practical one. Make sure you're labeling things in your portfolio. Label your Spotify list, label the files, get into the weeds with it. Make sure you're not leaving anything up to chance, and we know how you contributed technically to that piece of music. As I shared earlier, the applicants are always going to be evaluated in accordance with the skills required for the relevant program. For an engineering masterclass, you're going to be looking for clear strengths and skills related to engineering at the appropriate level. For songwriting, we're going to look for your acumen as a songwriter, etc. A strong portfolio here tells the candidate's story as a creator. It's another way for you to highlight your strengths, your goals, and even areas of growth as they might align with the program in question. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to briefly put another shout out there that you are required to disclose the use of generative AI in your work samples. Make sure it's labeled clearly, and please take advantage of the overall descriptive area when you're uploading your portfolios to share information that we should know when we're looking at your portfolio. So we're going to wrap up and get ready to move into our Q&A. And I want to leave you all with one small reminder as we do. With an average acceptance rate of 3%, we are moving the needle. Scholarships and grants are incredibly competitive. This is not in any way to discourage you. In fact, I really want to share this with you in order to encourage you, and it's quite the opposite. Because every application cycle, we create a really robust shortlist of our top tier applications along with our scholarship reviewers. We pay close attention to those of you who are putting yourselves out there for these opportunities. We will send follow-up to folks, match them with other opportunities that you might be eligible to apply for if this program wasn't quite the right fit for you, or even connect with you to discover other ways that we might be able to support your journey. So always remember, applying to a scholarship or a grant with We Are Moving the Needle is also your chance to make yourself known to us. All of these tips are here for you to help you kind of put your best foot forward when you're putting yourself out there to us in our community. We're going to move now to Q&A. So please, please, please put your questions in the chat, or you can share via direct message with the host or myself. And we have some time. What's on your mind, folks? So from Brianna, could the recording costs of an EP be eligible for a microgrant if I'm running the technical roles and am not a main performer? Absolutely, yes. That can absolutely qualify. We've seen applications like that before, especially if you're able to like pull the links in for how this is an opportunity for you to kind of like showcase your credits and be able to like level up in a meaningful way. I would say putting in your budgetary explanation like clearly that how the dollars are going to be supporting like you and your technical work, so the studio time, or we've seen applications even around like supporting the musician payout that needs to happen as part of the recording process, or renting gear that you might need specifically just to record that piece, things like that, more so rather than say like marketing the EP. So yes, that absolutely does apply. All right. I would love to know what makes a candidate stand out. Are personal stories important? Yeah, personal stories are important. I think that kind of goes back to the question of we've seen, this is going to sound a little strange, but we can tell when things are a little bit chat GPT written. They feel less personal. They have kind of that more. I think sometimes candidates might think that if you in articulating your goals go almost too far out and you aren't able to have that level of honesty about where you are at and where you're trying to position yourself, say with things like confidence building or other work like that, that's going to be a kind of like mark against you. But really, I would encourage you to, yeah, tell us who you are. Don't assume that we're going to be able to get all of that just from looking at your website or looking at your CV. The narrative is your opportunity to tell us things that we don't necessarily already aren't going to be able to tell about that. And are really going to be your way of giving us an insight into how you're thinking about building your career. As I said, like, none of us expect our applicants to have some sort of perfectly meticulously mapped out 5-year plan. No one's life works like that, right? So really, when we're talking about these career goals, it's like, what are those dreams that you're fluffing up under your pillow at night? What's keeping you going? And where are you trying to get to? And how is this going to hopefully support you in some even small way to get to where that's going? So, yes, please do be personal, be honest. This is a safe space. Thank you for that question. It's a good one. I've got a question on verification for college and universities acceptance. If you haven't accepted an offer and you won't hear from one of your schools until late April, do you list your top choice on your application, or have you committed before the deadline, or list those you've received offers from? It's a great question. So I think on our application, you might be able to list multiple different options. You can take the space to be, clear, like, this is my top choice, and these are my like backup choices that I have been accepted to. Um, we kind of have a two-phased verification process specifically for those who are incoming students. So a letter of acceptance from, I would say, like your backup school would be the thing you would apply with. And if that's going to change between when you apply and when you get moved to, say, the short list, the We're Moving the Needle team will be in communication with you, and you're going to ultimately share your final proof of enrollment with wherever you've accepted your placement. And you can always reach out to the info inbox to keep us updated about your application process with your school, and keep us updated if, your dream school lets you in, or you get off the wait list somewhere and you want to make sure that we know that that's where you would hope to use your funds. Send us an email and we can make a note on your record about that. So, but I would say in your application initially, include a letter of acceptance that verifies that you're going somewhere. And then if that's going to change, we can work with you on that. Great question. Um, Great. All right. Well, if I'm going to be here for a little bit longer, so please feel free, if you're still typing, continue to put questions in the chat. As we're wrapping up, I do want to just remind everyone, info at wearemovingtheneedle.org is where you can find us. Our doors are always open, whether or not you have questions on these specific applications, you want to know more about what scholarships are coming up down the line, you want to just talk about your career journey and are hoping to get a little guidance from someone, please reach out. And please know we get a high volume of emails. So if we're a little slow to respond, don't hold this against us. Know that you are on our radar and we are always going to be in touch back with you. But never hesitate to be in touch with us, please. We had another question. For students who want to submit work samples on live sound, that's a great question. How should we go about putting that in the portfolio? We've seen people do this in a couple of different ways. So certainly if you have any recording of your live sound work, you can always upload and share that with us and kind of walk us through, obviously we know that the recording process is gonna sound a little bit differently than the way it did in the room that night. So you can kind of walk us through that with you. You can also do like a clearly labeled like write-up of, an explanation of your recording process or your front of house kind of work, how you ran the sound night of. So talk us through some of your decisions around placement or choice of gear or X, Y, or Z, and help us kind of like think through things if we're not able to like hear in all the same ways what exactly it is that you've done. So that's a great question. But live sound is eligible, and you are eligible to apply for programs where you're specializing in that. Ooh, letters of recommendation. Yes, letters of recommendation from industry professionals. Would that be something we are encouraged to include in our application? Absolutely. So for our scholarships, letters of recommendation are required. And for our microgrants, letters of recommendation are not required, but they are certainly always welcome. And if you are having trouble uploading that to the portal, you can always send it to us via email to info@wearemovingtheneedle, and we'll make sure that that gets in your file. Our guidelines for letters of recommendation are typically, it can be a professor or faculty member, but also an industry leader, a mentor, someone who knows you well and can speak to your career in audio or some of your goals and dreams. That's a really lovely way for us to get to know you and get to know your work and kind of your stature in the community. So absolutely welcome letters of recommendation for sure. Great question. Are social media accounts weighted as heavily as portfolio pages? Is there a certain expectation for social media presence, frequency of posts that determines strong applicants? That's a really great question, Brianna. So vis-a-vis social media, this kind of ties into don't expect that a reviewer is going to do legwork for you. I would say that I always, and our committee always, everyone who reviews takes as a top priority what you have actually submitted for this application. So your portfolio should be what's standing first and foremost and be weighed heaviest. However, we have had times where someone just looks so promising and your portfolio is just not necessarily covering all the things we thought that it might, we're going to look up who you are. We're going to want to know more about you. And so we might find work samples from your social media pages, and that might be, a feather in your cap. But don't assume people are going to do that. I guess this is to say it can count for you. It shouldn't count against you at any point ever, obviously. But if you want people to be looking at something in particular vis-a-vis your work samples, you should include it in your work samples. And you can always include more than the suggested work sample amount as well. So that is definitely welcome. In terms of an expectation for social media presence or frequency of posts, we do not require that folks have a social media presence. There are some amazing producers and engineers out there who are highly professionalized and don't have socials at all or don't have a website. I will say, though, that one of the biggest pieces of advice that we have heard from like managers, for example, or A&R or like leaders in the field is that it's kind of hard starting out to make yourself known without those tools. It's not that it's not possible, but it's just that it is harder without them. So I would say there is often, not always, but often a pretty reciprocal relationship between having a pretty strong public facing presence, I'm going to say, not just socials, but also your website and how you present your work, and ultimately being a strong candidate, because that shows to us that you do have career goals, that you're thinking about how people are finding you, you're thinking about how other people are encountering your work samples. You're thinking about how you're displaying your credits and putting your best foot forward in that way. And you're thinking about, if you do have an artist project, how you're also maybe public facing, talking about your work behind the board. That is another piece. If you did include your Instagram page and it is only you promoting your artist EP and you're never talking about any technical work whatsoever, we might just ask them questions about why is that? Why, if they have all this great technical experience, aren't they highlighting that part of themselves publicly as well? So that's just another piece to think about. And again, it's not a major determining factor. It shouldn't be it's not what breaks your application, but it could be what makes your application sometimes in terms of just what it speaks to in terms of your overall professionalization and goals. Great question. Social media shy. We have a lot of folks who are like that in our network. You can leave out social media handles if you don't think they serve your case. They are optional. I might recommend that if you aren't a social media person, I would strongly recommend that you do make a website though. That's just career advice, not just like for applications. You don't need to have a website for an application, but I would just say that your public facing persona, even as it just relates to a static website, it doesn't have to be your socials persona, is going to probably help you in your overall career development. Thank you all so much again for joining today's call. We are going to save some of these clips and recordings and have them available. If there's anything you need to go back to, we can also circulate the slide deck from today as well if you want to review anything. Our information, a lot of this came from FAQs on our website too, so you always can go back to refer there. And we can always follow up with you over email to the info inbox. Please feel free to reach out at any time. We're here for you, and we'll talk more soon. Thank you, everybody.